I've been putting on events like this one for 11 years, and I can tell you the difference between the people who matter at a symposium and the people who make it run. The ones who matter arrive with lanyards that say things like asterisk Chief of Trauma Surgery or asterisk Rear Admiral, USN, RET, or Director, Joint Medical Affairs asterisk. They walk through the atrium of Halloran Medical Center like the carpet was laid for them personally. The people who make it run arrive an hour and a half early, test every microphone, tape every cable down, and nobody learns their names. Clara Voss was one of the latter. I knew that much. She was my counterpart on the hospital side, civilian liaison, same grade, assigned to make sure the audiovisual worked and the registration table had enough lanyards. I had met her twice before the symposium morning. Once in a planning call where Dr. Aldous Crane talked over her 4 times without seeming to notice, and once in the corridor outside the auditorium when she tried to flag a scheduling conflict, and Crane stopped her mid-sentence to shake hands with a visiting department chief from Walter Reed. She finished her sentence to the empty air, made a note on her clipboard, and moved on. She did not look wounded. She looked like a woman who had learned not to be surprised. I will be honest, I did not think much of it at the time. Crane was Crane, Chief of Trauma Surgery, chair of the symposium, a man who gave the impression that every room he entered had been waiting for him. He had that particular quality of authority that does not ask whether it is earned. I had worked enough events to know that the Cranes of the world got away with it, and the Clara Vosses absorbed it, and that was the order of things. The symposium was called the Halloran Joint Military-Civilian Medical Forum. We had done it 2 years running now. The idea was to bring active duty and reserve medical personnel together with civilian trauma and emergency staff, share protocols, compare doctrine, build the relationships that might matter when a mass casualty event made the 2 worlds overlap. In theory, it was a good idea. In practice, it was a Crane production. He selected the panelists, approved the agenda, and signed off on the printed program. Clara's name appeared nowhere in it. Mine appeared once in the acknowledgments in 9-point type. She had the AV desk in the back left corner of the auditorium, which seated about 200. By the time the doors opened at 8, every cable was taped, every slide deck was loaded, every backup was tested. I know because I watched her do it. She moved through the room the way certain people move through a job, not quickly, not slowly, but with a precision that does not waste a step. She had her coffee in a plain thermos. She wore the symposium lanyard that read asterisk logistics / Halloran Medical Center, the plain white one, not the blue that the panelists and speakers got. She had it tucked inside her lapel, which I thought was a small, odd thing to notice. I noticed it anyway. The morning sessions ran fine. Crane opened with remarks that were longer than the program said they would be. 3 panel presentations on mass casualty triage protocols, a keynote on interoperability between civilian-level trauma centers and forward surgical teams. The audience was a good mix, maybe 60 uniformed personnel from the Army, Navy, and Air Force side, the rest civilian trauma surgeons, nurses, paramedics, a few medical school residents who looked like they were waiting to be impressed. In the 3rd row from the front on the aisle sat a man I had been told was Rear Admiral Harlan Tice, retired, but still consulting for the Joint Medical Command, here at the invitation of the Military Liaison Office. He was a compact, quiet man in a dark suit, the kind of stillness about him that you noticed even from the back of the room. I had been briefed that he might say a few words during the Q&A if Crane invited him. Crane had not yet indicated one way or the other. The afternoon Q&A session began at 2:15. Crane had the microphone at the podium and was moderating with the air of a man who had written the questions himself. Audience members lined up at the floor microphone on the center aisle. It moved along. A trauma surgeon asked about protocol gaps. A Navy flight surgeon asked about blood product logistics. A civilian paramedic asked something Crane deflected with a joke that got some laughter. I was at my desk near the side door, reviewing the afternoon schedule, not paying close attention. Then I heard the pause. The young man at the floor microphone had stopped speaking. He had been partway through a question, something about field stabilization thresholds, and now he was standing there not finishing it. He was in army dress greens, a medic's caduceus on his collar, and he looked like he was about 23 years old. His mouth was open and no words were coming. His hands were at his sides and his breathing had gone shallow and fast, the kind you can see from across a room. Every person in that auditorium felt the shift. The silence had a texture to it. Crane at the podium had the expression of a man calculating whether to be annoyed or to perform patience. I looked toward the AV desk out of habit, because that is where I look when something goes wrong in a room. Clara Voss was not looking at her equipment. She was looking at the young medic. She had one arm resting on the desk and her other hand was at her side. While I watched, she raised that hand slowly, not enough to draw anyone's attention who was not already looking at her, and made a gesture I did not understand. 2 fingers extended, then the fist closed, easy and deliberate, like a word spoken in a language you could only read if you already knew it. The young medic blinked. His breathing slowed. He straightened almost imperceptibly. He found the rest of his sentence and delivered it in a voice that was steadier than it had any right to be. In the front row, Rear Admiral Tice turned his head. I do not know exactly what he saw first, the medic steadying himself or the woman at the back of the room lowering her hand. But I watched him turn in his seat and look directly at the AV desk, and I watched the expression on his face change. Not dramatically. He was not a man given to dramatic expressions, but something shifted, a recognition, quick and absolute, the way a man looks when he sees something he thought he might never see again. He stood up. "Excuse me," he said. His voice carried without effort, the way voices do when they have spent years being the last word in very loud places. Crane's head swiveled at the podium. The room went quiet in a different way than it had before, not the awkward silence of a young man losing his words, but the attentive silence of 200 people sensing that something unrehearsed was about to happen. The Admiral did not look at Crane. He turned to face the back of the auditorium. "Helix," he said, "just that." The word meant nothing to me, but I watched Clara Voss go very still. The thermos in her hand came down to the desk, set down without a sound. "Rear Admiral Tice," she said. Her voice was level, not surprised, or rather surprised in the way a person is surprised to be called home. "How long have you been in this building?" he said, and it was not quite a question. 2 years, sir." He looked at her for a moment and then he looked at the room, not at Crane, at the room. "The woman at the back of this auditorium," he said, and his voice was measured and clear, "is Major Clara Voss, United States Army, retired. She served 4 years as a joint billet combat flight nurse and field medic under my command in the Pacific Theater. She flew 6 medevac extractions in conditions that grounded every other bird we had. On 2 of those extractions, she was the only medical personnel on the aircraft. She kept every patient alive to the point of definitive care. She received the Air Medal with Valor. The signal she just gave, the one that steadied that young medic on his feet, is the signal her unit used in the field to tell a wounded soldier that the aircraft was coming, that he was not alone, that he was going to be all right." The auditorium was absolutely still. "We called her Helix," he said, "because she had a way of finding the line through impossible situations that no one else could see. She found it every time." He sat back down. He was not a man who performed gestures. That one was finished. I looked at Crane. He was standing at the podium with both hands on the edges of it, and his face had the expression of a man who has just understood, too late, the weight of something he set down carelessly a long time ago. He opened his mouth once and did not say anything. I do not know who started it. I think it was the young medic at the floor microphone, the one she had steadied, who turned around to face the back of the room and brought his heels together and his hand to his brow. Then the uniformed personnel in the seats around him, one by one and then in a wave, were on their feet. The civilians in the room stood too, not from protocol but from something else. The instinct that rises in a person when they are in the presence of a thing that deserves to be honored, and they do not want to be the one still sitting. Clara Voss did not move from the AV desk. She stood straight and she kept her eyes on the Admiral, and she did not look at Crane. She did not need to. I had been standing next to this woman for 2 years, and I had not known her name was on a citation. I had not known she had ever been in a cockpit racing toward a man bleeding out in a field. I had not known that the quiet precision with which she moved through a job, tapping cables, testing microphones, anticipating the thing that might go wrong and preventing it before anyone noticed, was the same quality that had gotten 6 men home alive. I thought about that corridor moment 2 years ago when she finished her sentence to the empty air and made a note on her clipboard. I thought about the planning calls. I thought about the program with her name not on it. What Crane did or did not feel in that moment is not mine to say. He was still at the podium when the room settled. He said something into the microphone about proceeding with the cue, and his voice was careful in a way it had not been all day. Clara Voss picked up her thermos, made a check on the clipboard, and went back to watching her equipment. Because the afternoon session still had 90 minutes left, and someone had to make sure the microphones worked. That is the part I keep coming back to. Not the Admiral standing, not the room rising, though I will carry both of those with me for whatever years I have left. It is the moment after, the job still in front of her, the thermos back in her hand. The same precision, the same economy of movement, the same complete indifference to whether anyone in that room understood what they were looking at. She knew, I think, that the Admiral had always known, and that was enough for her. The signal she gave that young medic meant, patient secured, coming home, you are not alone. I have been putting on events for 11 years. I will spend the rest of them trying to deserve to be in the same room as a woman like that.